Hello, I'm Beck. Welcome to my channel. Today I'll be drawing a D&D character based on the roll of the dice. Let's bring out the Tower of Destiny! Now, our Halfling Paladin here has the lowest dexterity or any roll that I've ever done for a character. And I felt that needed to be represented visually, so I've put this character in a wheelchair. I chose a wheelchair because I wanted her to still be able to carry weapons. She's +1 to strength. She's still very capable of doing anything that's involving strength, but for dexterity, that covers things like acrobatics checks. If you're trying to pickpocket someone, it's stealth and it's sleight of hand. And I feel like being a wheelchair user would represent a struggle in that area. It doesn't mean you can't do it. It's a -4 to whatever you roll. So if the DC is 10 and you roll a 14, then you've hit your DC. But it would be significantly harder to pickpocket someone and weave your way through a crowd or do anything that requires acrobatics or stealth checks if you're in a wheelchair. It makes it harder. So I've drawn her in a wheelchair. I'm actually excited about this character. I think it gives her so much more playability in a strange way. Like it adds a challenge that you might not really think about unless you're playing as a character. Like, I used to have a character in one of my games where she was a centaur, and it did pose a lot of very similar questions of like, can you go up a spiral staircase easily? Or if you're climbing a tree, can you climb a tree if you're a centaur? And it always came down to rolling the dice, and usually the answer was yes, and it would just be a matter of being creative about how you do it. So being a wheelchair using character is pretty cool, and I'm excited to draw her. What should we call her? I'm gonna call her Barbra. So not Barbie, Barbra. And Barbra is a Halfling Paladin. I'm gonna circle back to that. Being a halfling, it's kind of like being a human. They have rounded ears and very humanoid features generally, but they are so small. They are very small. They resemble children to most other races, and I don't think they really usually come taller than 5 feet. So let me check. Blah, blah, blah. They're usually about 3 feet tall. So that's the average height of a halfling. But they do have a few traits that are specific to their race, such as lucky. When you roll a nat 1 on the d20 for an attack roll, ability check, or saving throw, you can re-roll it, and you must use the new roll though. So if you get another nat 1, that's just the dice telling you what's up. You have brave, which means you have advantage on saving throws against being frightened. You have halfling nimbleness, so you can move through the space of any creature that's a size larger than yours. So anyone, I think it's like, if they're your size, you can also share a space, but if they're one size bigger than you, you can occupy the same space, no worries. And depending on what kind of halfling you are, such as a Lightfoot, Mark of Healing, Mark of Hospitality, or Stout Halfling, you have your own extra abilities. And in this case, I'm going to say she is a Stout Halfling, which means she has Stout Resilience, which is advantage on saving throws against poison and resistance against poison damage. So that's around the Constitution modifier area. So she already has, well, she's just a +0, but she's not in the negatives in that, which it's sort of weird when you roll so poorly on one. You're like, it's okay that they have okay other scores. It's the other scores are fine. Now, being a paladin, I didn't want her to be just another I've done a few paladins already, and they've always been the sort of very shiny knights kind of vibe, and I thought that this one would be fun as an Oath of Vengeance paladin. I haven't really thought about what her vengeance is for. I don't think that her disability is the reason that she's seeking vengeance. I think that maybe happened along the way of her journey of trying to get vengeance on whoever has wronged her in the past. More on that later, but paladins are, they're very much like knights. Their class features include things like divine sense, so if there is strong evil or extremely powerful good, sort of, I guess, celestial type things around, you can sense them. You have lay on hands, which means you can kind of do a healing touch spell when you're with your party. And at level 2, you pick a fighting style that you can specialize in, which is defense, dueling, great weapon fighting, or protection. You also have a few spells that you can cast from level 2, I think, but yeah, generally it's very much a fighting, healing kind of character. Now, looking back at her abilities, we've already talked about Dex, but we have a +1 to Strength, and I think that has more to do with being a paladin than it does to do with being a wheelchair user, but I feel like the wheelchair would only have helped with this because she is using her arms to push her wheels around, so it's building a lot of strength in her upper body, and she can also use her wheelchair as a physical barrier, which would be a strength roll. If you're trying to stop a boulder from rolling, that's a strength roll, and if her wheelchair is counted as a part of her, then using it would still be a strength roll. So yeah, +1 to Strength. Average con, I don't think her lifestyle has particularly been affected by con. Growing up as a halfling, she would have had hearty meals quite regularly, but then I suspect the reason that she is out for vengeance is perhaps her family and her village and just everything she's known was destroyed when she was a child, and she made an oath to get vengeance, get the people who did that, and not just the physical soldiers who did it, but the people who made the orders to the soldiers. So that would be her oath of vengeance. And she probably was quite young when that happened, because constitution relates to your ability to survive without food or water for a while, which, if you saw Lord of the Rings, is not something hobbits particularly enjoy doing, but she's fine with it. She can go without sleep and hold her breath for a while. Just an average amount, just no pluses but no negatives. Decent con. Now, her intelligence is very high, as is her charisma, but her wisdom is also just average. So I think that kind of combination means that she does still utilize her halfling kind of hospitality upbringing. Like, she was taught to be kind and hospitable, and she knows that most people she encounters will have nothing to do with her oath of vengeance, but when she gets hot on the trail, nothing will stop her. She's like a dog with a bone on this, and she's not worried about sullying her reputation or doing the wrong thing if it means fulfilling her oath. So most paladins are all about doing good all the time, being beacons of good in the community. She doesn't really care about that. She cares about fulfilling her oath of vengeance. If that makes her a dick, then she's gonna be a dick. And I was talking about that with relation to charisma, but you know, a +2, she can be charming, but probably just for her own needs. I don't think that she's particularly intimidating. That's a charisma roll as well, but even if she is cutthroat, I don't know that she would be particularly scary to a lot of races. So I think she does turn on the charm pretty well. And in terms of intelligence, she remembers things, like she has that really sharp memory that can be required when you're hunting someone, when you're trying to seek revenge on someone. You might hear something in passing that's only slightly related to your adversary, but you remember it because you're filing away every possible weakness, every strength, everything she needs to know to get the job done. So if we're thinking about why she would join an adventuring party and go on various adventures that aren't necessarily directly related to her achieving her direct goal, it could be that her source of information has run dry, or she's having trouble finding key people that she needs to kill or torture, or whatever it is that she wants to do that she feels satisfies her oath. And she would employ the help of other people, and she might even team up in a quid pro quo way, especially if you have aligned goals, if you're all looking for the same person, for example, or if there is a particular object and it's the only object that can kill the big bad guy who had her village destroyed. Anything in that area would be the perfect call to action to have this character join up with a party and possibly create a new family, a new community along the way, where she might not be as angry when it comes to the moment where she has to fulfill her oath. She might have softened a bit, or she might have talked the rest of the party into hardening, and you could just annihilate. I can say all the words. You could annihilate everyone involved in destroying her village. And there's also a lot of possibility of having her lost loved ones. Maybe she thinks the village was fully decimated, but they weren't, and there were certain members who survived and were possibly involved somehow in maybe they didn't want the village to be destroyed, but they gave information that they didn't realize was very, very dangerous information. For example, if the halfling, yes, they're the same thing, let's be real. If the halfling village was sitting on top of a massive mining potential, like a lot of gold, a lot of iron, a lot of gemstones, then particularly dwarves or anyone who's interested in having that would find it a lot easier to destroy the village and just take the land than working with the halfling community to establish a mutually beneficial arrangement, shall we say. It could be that lots of halflings from this village happen to wear a lot of very crudely mined gold and gems because they're just sitting in the dirt. You just find them the way that a child would wear a shell around their neck that they found at the beach. And one day somebody inquired as to where those came from, and that particular halfling told them, and maybe that's what happened. That's where all of this started. Or maybe it was the mayor of the town who literally sold the village to the bad guy, and the mayor survived but no one else did other than Barbra here. So that could be fun to play as well. In any case, I did have the thing again where I forgot to record the last of my colouring in, so this is just very poor. Well, it's not too bad, but it's a time lapse from Procreate and not a screen recording where you can see me choosing all the colors and zooming in and out. I don't know what you prefer, but whoops. Anyway, Barbra, this is her. I think she's pretty cool. She's obviously pretty formidable in terms of fighting and just killing it in the D&D world. What do we think? Tell me in the comments. And of course, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will catch you next week. Bye!